What's up, JEFusion fans? This is Philip and welcome back to another video. So, Bakuagi Sentai Boon Boonger already revealed to us that, Boon Red, aka Taya, had already received his power-up for this season, which is the Boon Red 119. So, with that said, I don't have a figure just yet because I'm pretty sure it's gonna come out as a Yudo figure first, hopefully in the near future. But with that said, at least for illustration purposes, I have here King Kuwagata Oger. We'll get into that later. But yeah, so I want to talk about like Red Ranger exclusive power-ups. Now, to get started, in the history of Super Sentai series, well, it's not often that you get power ups for the Red Rangers, let alone the whole team. Now, there have been power ups for the team, sure, and there's there are like prototype power ups for individual Rangers. So I guess I'm gonna have to give Dynaman a shout out. I haven't seen the show, but upon research in the past, so Dyna Black had his own Dynatector, I believe that's called, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong, those who know better, please tell me in the comments. That would be appreciated. But yeah, he is technically the first Ranger to have like a solo upgrade, if you will, and he's not even a Red Ranger. And power ups for the team would come later. I believe Five Man was the very first Sentai to kind of play with the idea and actually use in the show, a team power up. But like individual power ups, again, like the Dynatector would come much later. And I think the most famous example of a prototype, quote unquote, Red Ranger power up would be in Jew Ranger when Dragon Ranger passes on his shield, or his, I guess you call it Dragon Shield in the Jusoken, to Tyranno Ranger. Well, if you know the Power Rangers franchise better, so this is when Tommy gives Jason his Dragon Shield and Dragon Dagger to use, temporarily. So this would have been the first power up, if you will, for a Red Ranger or any individual member for that matter. And the tradition of a singular Ranger receiving power ups, most, particularly the Red Ranger. So it's something that was kind of developed, or that was kind of utilized more within the Power Rangers franchise first, and I guess Super Sentai would just adapt to that kind of idea much later with their own takes, with their own concepts that, I will mention later. So I guess the very first Red Ranger power up that, Super Sentai had developed actually was something that was post season. I'm talking about Deca Red Battlizer from Maho Sentai Maji Ranger versus Tokusatsu Sentai Deca Ranger. So in that particular team up movie, so at the end of Deca Ranger, Ban, aka Deca Red, leaves the team in order to join the Fire Squad, and when he comes back to Earth to help out his team and the Maji Rangers, so he reveals that he has received a power up, and that was Murphy, turning him into the Deca Red Battlizer. I believe it was Umeko, aka Deca Pink, who commented, "Oh, so that's where you went, buddy." So the most interesting about this concept is that this is the first time that a Red Ranger in the Super Sentai franchise, rather, wears a Battlizer which is actually taken from his American counterpart, to say the least. You know, so the very first battlizer in Super Sentai actually was taken from the Power Rangers, and that is a really interesting thought to process. And I know that there are many Ranger fans out there who kind of, made fun of it for, having this steel thong in its power up. But nonetheless, I personally like the SPD Battleizer, and SPD is one of my favorite seasons within the Power Rangers franchise, and also that makes Decker Ranger my favorite. No, what or one of my favorite entries in the Super Sentai franchise as well. So being uh, just two different versions of the same material, if you will. But yeah, uh, it was kind of the very first battleizer utilized in the franchise. But over the years, well, we kind of skipped that again. But nonetheless, teams at least would get power ups, and then therefore, Red Rangers would also get their power ups. But let me just first talk about like the Red Rangers who received their power ups within the show. I guess this is kind of a cheat um, in terms of like technicalities, but so I think the I guess the earliest in-show appearance of Red exclusive power-up was Samurai Sentai Shinkenger. So I guess technically this isn't a red power-up, but let me explain first. So in Shinkenger the movie, actually, so it was there that the Shinkengers would encounter the Kyoryu disc, which enables any Shinkenger to transform into the Hyper Shinkenger mode. So uh, this is basically like the Super Shinkenger, where they have robe simply, but the robe in the Hyper mode is red, and it has like shoulder pads, and the Shinken Maru turns into the transforms rather into the Kyoryu Maru. So it was created in first you know used by Retsudo Shiba, the very first Shinken Red, and passed down through, or rather it was kept secret, but it was Takeru who finds it again, and therefore is able to use the Kyoryu disc, and he becomes Hyper Shinken Red. However, I wouldn't really say that this is a Red exclusive power up either, because later in the series, so he actually loans it to Chiaki Shinken Green, and well, it was the only time that another Shinkenger used the hyper disc, at least within the show, and theoretically, all the other Shinkengers could also use it as well. And the only other instance that the hyper disc was used was in, I believe, a Terebikun exclusive. So this is when Shinken Gold transformed into Hyper Shinken Gold. So he wasn't able to actually use the Super Shinkenger form until the team up with Go Sager, when the Go Sagers were able to make multiple copies of the Super Shinkenger mode, and have Genta also become Super Shinken Gold as well. But nonetheless, yeah, at least three Rangers were able to use the Hyper Disc, and or the Kyoryu Disc rather. But mostly it was Takeru who used it. Yeah, I think we could say this was kind of the very first instance of a single Ranger power up, if you will. So if I'm not mistaken. So, we're going to jump into, I guess, a few years, probably many years after that, because the next exclusive power up that I could distinctly remember for a single Red Ranger would be, I guess, again, you could correct me if I'm wrong. So, Chozetsu. So the Chozetsu Aka Ninja. So, when uh, so Takaharu obtains this power, he mostly uses it, but technically, at least once in the show, each member of the ninjas were able to, uh, equip the Shishi Shuriken, if I'm correct. So, there was one time that Fuka, aka Shiro Ninja, wore the armor, the Chozetsu armor. Sorry, we're babysitting right now. But, anyways, uh, we're gonna leave it in. So, anyways, so Fuka was wearing the Chozetsu armor, albeit out of suit. So it's just Fuka Igarashi without the Shiro Ninja suit, and she's wearing the armor. So it was a joke, but yeah, she was wearing the armor. And then there was one episode when Kasumi was given a chance to wear the armor, but for some reason she said that she doesn't like the visual, but instead combines it with um, Star Ninja's Gekiatsuto, so his power up sword. So she combines those two for technique instead of wearing the armor. But basically, each and every ninja was able to wear that shows its armor, albeit again it was, for all intents and purposes, basically worn by Takaharu most of the time or almost exclusively. Now, the next power up that I'm going to mention is definitely something that's exclusive to the Red Ranger, and that is um, Duo Eagle's Duo Whale form. So he receives the cube. I forgot the name. Sorry. You could tell me in the comments section. That's fine. But yeah, he receives the whale cube, and it becomes his power up. So he is the only ranger to use that. And in the final episode of the show, so he so Joe Eagle uses a Yasei Daikaiho, which is basically, his version of power up that is similarly based on, or that was kind of similar to Duo the World, you know. So when Duo the World basically kind of it's a power up in and of itself, I guess. So, you know, I guess you could say it's more powerful than the uh, Honno Kakusei form, which is basically the power up forms of all the Geogers, but because Geo the World uses three animals at once, so it's technically more powerful. So with that said, Geo Eagle was able to use three powers at the same time. Again, the Eagle, Gorilla, and Whale powers, again, all combined in one suit, and that is his basically main power up, only used once in the final battle against Genius. So yeah, technically there's that. And following that is Shishired Orion, which is the first time, I guess, that a power up kind of completely changes the color of the ranger using it. So, of course, the name Shishired still remains, and for all intents and purposes, he's still the Red Ranger, but his suit turns completely white. So, I guess there's that, with the inclusion of the armor and cape. So, yeah, I guess that's the power up, you could say. Now, following that would be, so Pato Ranger versus rather Lupin Ranger versus Pato Ranger with Super Lupin Red. Yeah, very original name. So nonetheless, he basically gets an armor, a new cape. That's it. But he also gains the power to see, into the future and predict enemy movements, which I guess is nice. However, well, this is an exclusive, almost an exclusive to Lupin Red. So uh, Patoran X also used it at least a couple of times, I remember. So, uh, Patoran X, also known as Lupin X, because he's a double agent. So, uh, Lupin X, he also has a power up, so making him, well, I guess technically not the first Sixth Ranger with his own power up, but yeah. So he does use an armor, but late I believe that armor would be lent to Patoren Ichigo at least once as well. So at least he gets to have a proper power up at least once in the show. But yeah, mostly the power ups were on the Lupin Rangers side because technically they're the main characters of the show. Um, well, whether you like it or not, that's how they were kind of treated anyway. So yeah, now moving on to the next one, I think it's you know, this is by far one of my personal favorite, the exclusive power ups, and that is, you know, Max Luso Red. So Max Luso Red is well, a form that kind of develops when Nada sacrificed himself to protect Ko, and I guess using his own soul and the power of the Guy Soul armor. So I guess he became a power up for Ryuso Red to use. So this is basically the closest we can get to a full on battlizer, like a full body armor. So that's, I guess that's why it's one of my personal favorites. Um, so yeah. Now the next instance of a red exclusive power up, I guess. Well, I gotta say, well, following New Soldier, well, it's definitely Zen Kaiser. So he becomes Super Zen Kaiser. So he not only gains like a full body armor, but rather he becomes more like a Kikainoid in appearance. So what's interesting about the Super Zen Kaiser is that, so his armor is based off of Dragon Caesar from Jew Ranger, while they already have a member that represents Jew Ranger, and that's Zenkai Juram. So, uh, I'm not sure what the Toei was planning when they created Super Zen Kaiser in mind, but personally, they could have, gone for another Sentai that, I don't know, that's kind of original, so something that's separate, but I guess like more of its cultural impact, with the Power Rangers thing. So I guess that's another homage to a franchise that made Super Sentai popular around the world. So that's anybody's guess. But of course, not only does Zen Kaiser get a power up, but also two Kaiser as well, because basically they share or they use the same power up item. So there are uh, Zenkaiju gear, if I remember correctly. So they each have one. So yeah, at least it enables them to transform into their power forms at the same time. So, well, Kaito, aka Zen Kaiser, gets a full body armor, but Two Kaiser gets like just a body armor and a cape, probably a V-fin antenna, and that's it, I guess. But yeah, so moving on, we have uh, Goldon, uh, Goldon Momotaro from Dawn Brothers, and yeah, well, kind of lame, I guess, because he just gets, again, body armor, probably a new headpiece, cape, a new weapon with the Omikoshi Phoenix. So that's it, really. So, I mean, yeah, that's his power up. And next, so of course we have here, so King Kuwagata Oger. Now, well, not necessarily exclusive to Gira. Actually, for when the King Crown and the Oja Crown and the Oja Crown Lance made their appearances for the first time. So it was actually Rackless who used the power up first. So turning into King Okuagata Oger. So the main difference is, well, they have basically the same body armor. So the difference is, so King Okuagata Oger has like silver protrusions, or like, kind of V fins on the side of his face, and his body suit still remains silver. Well, with Gira using the Oja Crown Lance, and of course the Oja Crown to become King Kuwagata Oger, so just like as mentioned earlier with Shishired Orion, so he has a full-on color change from red to gold. So this would signify that, yeah, he is kind of quote unquote the rightful user of the power up. Although again, we could theoretically think that no, I guess any King Oger would have been able to use this as well, but I guess with the crown being a property of the Hasti family, well, probably if you're a member of the Hasti family and you were either Kuwagata Oger or Kuwagata Oger, so you could basically use that, yeah, more or less. And I actually at this point have forgotten, you know, um, so Kyoryu Carnival, so Kyoryu Red Carnival form. I guess, yeah, you could say it's battlizer. So within the Power Rangers Dino Fury franchise, so well, they would consider the Kyoryu Red Carnival to be a battlizer. So there's that. So yeah, uh, these are some of the things that I could name off the top of my head when it comes to Red Ranger exclusive powers. Again, not all of these are exclusive. Some of them can be passed around within the team. Oh, and I also forgot with New Soldier. So they also received the Yuso Caliber. So while uh, Yuso Red can use the Max New Soldier form, well, he also was able to use the power up, the cape and body armor that came with the Yuso Caliber. But because it was a team effort, so Cole and Kanano basically found the Yuso Caliber, so they would usually share it, but at least at one point, so Merto also used it. So technically speaking, any new soldier can use the Ryuso caliber, and by extension, the form that comes with it. So yeah, but again, Max Ryuso Red is completely exclusive. Now, on to the forms that I would say are the post-season forms. So I started off this video with um, Deca Red with his battlizer, again, the one taken from Power Rangers, and going back to Deca Red. So by the 10-year anniversary, he has the Fire Squad suit. Rather than a power up, he gets a new suit. So basically, a recolored vest from the SWAT mode, minus the headgear. So that's his quote unquote power up for that season. And recently, with the 20th anniversary, so Fireball Booster, so the Premier Decker Red, if I'm correct, so it is rather a full-on body armor, but compared to the compared to the Power Rangers counterpart Battlizer, so this is sleeker, a lot more red, but I guess kind of anything, with technology, things get bigger first, but then they get smaller, but yet more powerful. So I guess you could say that's the case. So we could consider it to be a power up for Deca Red without having to rely on Murphy, so that Murphy can still be used by the rest of the Earth Department SPD Rangers. So yeah, it's a nice power up to say the least. But you know, I personally wish that they utilized the you know the Power Rangers based battlizer. So again, as an homage to their American counterpart. And moving on to the other movies that are post season, the anniversary seasons that have come out recently. First, we have Oedo. Sorry, uh, I was about to say Shinken Red. Sorry. So Oedo Hurricane Red, instead of body armor like what they did with the Ninja Storm one. So they decided to dress Hurricane Red in a kabuki costume, complete with hair, and instead of a sword, he uses a naginata, which is a very interesting choice. So moving on to Abba Ranger, which I forgot to mention, had a power up. So we have Abare Max from Abba Ranger, and then in the 20th anniversary film, so he gets kind of a power up. So Abare Max with a new body armor helmet. Well, this power up, I would say, yeah, the Power Rangers had this one beat. So this is where I would say, yeah, you could have just gone with the uh, you know Triassic armor. God, that was so overkill. But and this is one situation where I would say the Power Rangers kind of did of a better job than the Super Sentai counterpart. So yeah, I mean, it was a power up, and honestly, the Abare Max would have like I actually would have preferred the original Abare Max instead of the 20th anniversary version, but that's an anniversary for you. And considering that Kyoryuger also made a comeback with their 10-year anniversary, so Kyoryu Red Carnival receives another power up. So I guess that's what happens. And now that Kako Ranger is about to come back with their 30th anniversary special, so who knows if Ninja Red might get a power up or the whole team gets a power up form. Who knows what happens? I'm excited to see that. But yeah, these are so far the Red Ranger exclusive kind of power ups that I could mention. So with the Boon Red 119 having shown up again, it kind of gave me this idea. So, anyways, what do you guys think? So, tell me in the comment section. Which one is your favorite, power up from the Super Sentai series? Or if you want to include the Power Rangers Battleizers, feel free to do so. But for me, I guess I have mentioned this earlier. If I have to pick like an absolute power up from Super Sentai, like again, so like the Battleizer, I'm still sticking with Max Luso Red. So yeah, that's my favorite so far. Again, it's the coolest looking form. I mean King Kuwagata Ultra is nice, so I guess it's gonna come in at number 2 for me. But yeah, Max Luso Red, that's my personal favorite. So what is your favorite Super Sentai power up? Again, if you want to include Power Rangers Battleizers, go ahead, knock yourself out. And I guess if I were to mention the Power Rangers, so the Battleizers, speaking, I guess I'm gonna stick with SPD Battleizer. Flight mode, yeah, Steel Fang included. So anyways, so Thank you so much for watching, and as always, leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, and don't forget that notification bell so you get the latest from JEFusion. This has been Philip, and I'll see you next time. Bye!